So we have another video at Car Week, and this one is with a good friend of mine, Jack. Now, Jack right here, say hi.
Hello.
Is 23 years old.
I am.
And he has a Lamborghini Murcielago.
I do.
And it's not parents' money.
No, not at all.
Almost unheard of. I've interviewed hundreds of kids for how do you get this car in high school and college, and almost every single kid with a car over $60,000 was daddy's money or parents' money.
Wow.
So you are one in a million pretty much.
I guess so.
So first, before we get into like what you do for a living, let's go over the car, the history, the story of the vehicle.
This is a 2009 Lamborghini Murcielago LP640. This was always my dream car. This is absolutely it. Like my mentality is if you're going to spend over 6 figures on a supercar, it's got to have doors that go up, wings that go up, a screaming F1 engine.
So what's happened to this car in its past?
In its past, it was in Seattle and it was on the freeway, and somehow they lost. I mean, it's all-wheel drive. I don't know how they lost control. A lot of people actually lose control of these. There's a lot of wrecked Murcielagos out there, but a person did, and the whole front end got torn off.
So this whole from like here?
Yeah, literally from like this fender, like everything was white. It was unrecognizable on the front end. It was gone. All these headlights and all this stuff, this is all new. And so when they repaired it, they actually had the same colored LP640 in orange Roadster side by side, and they transplanted that car's front end onto this. I don't even know if they ever painted the front end to match, because I think it was literally the exact same color. And in person, you can maybe like ever so slightly like tell here and there, but other than that, it's pretty close. Rebuilt by a shop in Toronto. Then another guy, after it was repaired, owned it for about like 3,000 miles on the car and stuff. And so that was what gave me the confidence to be like, okay, this car is going to be safe enough and good enough condition that I'll take the risk and I'll buy it.
I have one question about this car.
Yeah.
When you come to the inside, do you know why this half is yellow and that half is orange?
Yes. So because there are some photos of this car throughout its life and stuff, I have once previously seen a photo like right after it was repaired in Toronto, and the interior was all one color. So this was definitely the previous owner right before me, his doing. And when I actually went to go pick up this car, I found that it was left sitting in his driveway outside, and the battery was dead and all this kind of stuff. Wasn't in that good of a presentable state, but I only assumed that he just left it outside all the time, which I don't know how you could do this for such a flashy car, but he did. It just became sun faded. Some of the things I liked about this car is that it is a high option car. It's also an 09, which is, they didn't make that many of those. It's the last year of the 640. And so little things like standard carbon ceramic brakes, factory backup camera, which weren't on the previous ones as well. So just little things like that.
How long have you owned this car?
Since October, and because we bought it in October and it's bright orange, that's why it was only fitting that we make our plate say pumpkin right here. I would disclose that what I paid for this car is basically a straight trade for my Gen 2 R8 with like stage 1 sheepy turbos on it or whatever, so you can kind of math out whatever that is. But it was a really low price.
How did you find this car for sales?
This car was being for sale in Abbotsford. The guy said he got no offers from anyone from the US. Really? So that already within itself showed, like, I guess how little competition there was. And then also because of the accident history, he couldn't find anyone that wanted to buy it because they had to pay in full. You couldn't finance the car. It is a rebuilt title car. Because of all that, we're able to knock down even more. If something were to happen to this now, I probably couldn't get myself in another LP640 because I was able to get it for such a low price. And yeah, they're so expensive now.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's go for a ride and find out how you actually pay for this car.
Yeah.
That is the most mind-boggling thing. So we are in the Murcielago now. How is this thing to drive? Stressful?
Yeah, I would say so. Steering is super heavy. You can't see out of it. Then there's just the transmission and the clutch alone. This car has the E-gear. Their clutches are super clunky, not exactly that easy to operate or drive around in, and then they also don't last very long. So clutch life could be literally as low as like 15,000 miles. To replace it, you have to drop the motor. It can be up to a $15,000 job. I wouldn't even describe this as a particularly good car. To say it's honestly kind of a bit of a piece, but you kind of deal with all of this because of just the reactions, the smiles, how much of an icon this is, and the noises that this makes. And I truly believe that every car guy just wants a little bit of a challenge. They don't want to be bored by what they're driving, and so this car definitely is that. There's a lot to entertain you as you're simply just trying to do ordinary tasks in this thing.
Onto like the maintenance you said, does that scare you financially?
It does. I'm in a scenario where I bought this car for so cheap that I don't really think I know what I'm in for. You could part out this car for probably more than what the actual full price. I just drove this car from Arizona all the way up to where we're at right now in Monterey, and that was about like 11 hours. We had a couple issues when we were stopping in LA. We had a battery that slowly was draining out, so the car needed to be jumped every now and then. And then my e-brake wasn't fully releasing. We figured out those things. We got a new battery, and we found that a nut was loose on the e-brake cables. If I ever sold this car, it would be for that reason.
Speaking of owning it and paying for the maintenance on it, what do you do to afford a Murcielago at 23?
So at 23, I've been making YouTube videos since I was like 12 years old. And I started the channel back in 2013. And back then when I started it though, it wasn't even for the sake of like earning money or anything like that. People didn't know that you could make a living off of it. But I've always just had a want to just record things and, you know, retain memories in the gaming world, in the games such as Forza Horizon or even Grand Theft Auto. I would record all of that, and eventually it started picking up traction, and soon enough we discovered later down the line that you could also monetize that through the ads that they put out on YouTube and Google and stuff like that.
So YouTube is what paid for this car?
Yes, specifically within YouTube, like racing video games, which is really surreal because it's like I was just a kid recording himself, you know, racing and virtually driving Lamborghinis, and it's somehow gotten me actually behind the wheel of one that I can own.
And how does it feel to now have achieved your like dream car?
It's super surreal. I would say the one thing about this car, no matter like how much of a headache it can be here and there, or how much less like usable it can be at times in comparison to other more practical exotics or just cars in general, is the thing about this car is that I can enjoy this car when I'm not behind the wheel, even when it's just sitting at home and I'm not around it, because I could just be out somewhere and the realization, remembering that I have a Murcielago at home or that it's there, it just brings like a happy wave that'll just rush it, because yeah, it's such a big goal to me that feeling and that accomplishment just hasn't really, I don't know if it'll ever disappear to that extent. But I would say that this has also been such a big goal that it's kind of also gotten me a little lost afterward on like the what's next, finding a new goal and finding like, you know, that same level of motivation and that drive that was there prior.
Yeah. So before you had this car, you'd think you were more driven?
I would say so, yeah. I would say cars mainly motivate me. I mean, I've been lucky enough to also have been able to get a mortgage on a house, but for me it's kind of like, once you have a house, and that's done. It's not so much like, okay, let's work up to buy a better house or a mansion or something crazy. Now I'm at the mindset of more cars.
Yeah.
What's the next car I want? It's at least what will like kind of in little stages kind of keep me motivated.
And I have a question about like being a YouTuber. How do you get financing for like a mortgage or for a car? Are you able to do that? Are there banks that lend money to you? Because your income is kind of unstable.
The only big loan I've ever gotten is for my house. I have never gotten a loan for any of my cars. You know, we were able to show them like prove to them like what could be made and what could be done. And also now having that loan with the house also can at least help for other loans in the future on other cars if I wanted to here and there.
So back to like the financing, you bought all your cars with just straight cash.
Yeah, I mean, it's part of how my parents wanted me to do things as well, but just not to have, you know, too much money owed all the time and not have too many things above you. Yeah, and I'd also always just wait, you know, until I can, you know, fully afford a car to really go in on it.
What would your advice be for a young or old person that wants to do YouTube?
Truth be told, it's really like you have to be able to be pushing out content and have someone tell you that like you wouldn't be making a single dime off of it for like at least 2 years. Like it has to be so fun for you. The big money, the big followers, and all, you know, all those things, they aren't gonna just magically happen overnight. Yeah, it was kind of like it only worked out for me because I was genuinely enjoying just creating videos.
What do your parents think of you having a Lamborghini and doing YouTube as well?
My mom really wanted me to go to college, and I put that off for, I was actually like thinking that I was gonna go. I just tell people I'm taking a gap year, and then I actually was like gonna go into, this was like 2020, so I was gonna be in like a Zoom orientation. I had so little motivation for it, like literally just absolutely nothing, that I basically just backed out because I was like, there's no way I'm gonna get anything out of this. And that's kind of what I've mainly been told, at least when it comes to college and such, is that you kind of have to at least have somewhat of an idea of what you're going there for. And I had no idea. I was just like, I'm just going because my parents want me to, or for the sake of going. And so, I mean, when it comes to all this crazy stuff, also every car purchase too is also, you know, met with hesitation. They're like, some of them they'll probably completely not understand, some of them they do. I think I've gone through enough cars by now that they kind of understand the business, the pattern of it. But you know, they're still supportive at the end of the day. And
To some people that might be really, you know, scary to not go down a conventional route. How do you deal with stress and the management of not having a normal job?
I would say that was the scariest thing, and that's why I wanted to go, is because I felt like, you know, everybody through school, you're kind of like, at least through the earlier years, you're just set on this path, right? You don't really have to worry about like figuring things out. You just go to school, you just show up. And so by not going to college, you don't have this path anymore. You're just kind of put out into the open sea, and you just got to somehow figure out things on your own. And yeah, just figuring out life kind of not in school is, yeah, it definitely can get stressful here and there. Doing YouTube for so long, you kind of start to develop a system, a routine for things or whatever. It's still working well. It's kind of what I'll keep doing, at least until it stops.
Do you have a final piece of advice for someone watching?
Well, one, we live in a new world. Never dismiss a young kid with something. Social media isn't just overnight success as well, and that it does take time. You just got to find actual passion out of things.
Stick with it. Whatever you're going through in life, whatever you're working towards, just stick with it. If it's going well, if you're seeing any progress, stick with it. Don't quit, because you never know where you might end up.